No one gazes upon Saturn by accident. Far beyond the familiar planets we learn to name in school, this colossal sphere spins in eternal silence, shrouded in rings and something far more mysterious, an ancient presence that has captivated human consciousness for millennia. What if everything we've been told about Saturn is incomplete? What if this distant world isn't merely a planet, but something far more profound? A cosmic mechanism designed not to imprison bodies, but to entrap souls themselves. For thousands of years, civilizations across the globe have pointed to the same celestial body, the same archetypal symbol, the same divine figure, Kronos, the timekeeper, the great devourer, the eternal judge of the departed. From Babylonian temples to modern secret societies, from ancient Egypt to contemporary occult practices, the pattern repeats with unsettling consistency. Saturn represents suffering, judgment, and the endless recycling of human consciousness. This isn't a modern conspiracy theory. It's an ancient wisdom that has survived the rise and fall of empires, hidden within hermetic texts, alchemical manuscripts, religious architecture, and myths that somehow survived humanity's darkest hours of intellectual suppression. They all converge on one terrifying possibility. Reincarnation isn't salvation. It's her sentence, an endless cycle of cosmic imprisonment, spinning like Saturn's rings with no apparent escape. Long before Galileo pointed his telescope skyward, ancient civilizations already understood something profound about Saturn. They didn't see it as merely a distant rock orbiting the sun. They recognized it as a divine force, and not a benevolent one. To the Greeks, Saturn was Kronos, perhaps the most terrifying of all titans. This wasn't simply a mythological king. Kronos embodied a cosmic principle that still haunts human consciousness. According to legend, he overthrew his own father to claim power. Then, consumed by paranoia about his own fate, began devouring his children the moment they were born. But this wasn't an act of hatred. It was recognition of a universal truth. Time devours everything it creates, including itself. What's particularly fascinating is how ancient astronomers, without modern instruments, calculated Saturn's orbital period with remarkable accuracy. The Babylonians determined that Saturn took approximately 29.5 Earth years to complete one orbit, a figure that modern astronomy confirms as 29.46 years. This precision suggests our ancestors possessed a deeper understanding of celestial mechanics than conventional history acknowledges. The Maya, thousands of miles away and centuries later, independently developed similar calculations. Their Venus table in the Dresden Codex demonstrates mathematical sophistication that rivals modern astronomical computations. If they could track Venus with such precision, what else did they know about the outer planets? Kronos represents more than mythological terror. He embodies repetition, imprisonment, and the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In various esoteric traditions, Saturn functions not as a creator deity, but as a cosmic warden, the force that traps souls within karma, within samsara, within a reality that endlessly recycles itself while maintaining the illusion of progress. This brings us to the central question: why Saturn specifically? Why not Jupiter with its massive gravitational influence, or Mars with its blood-red appearance that has terrified humans for millennia? Saturn occupies a unique position in our solar system that ancient astronomers understood intuitively. It represents the boundary, the farthest planet visible to the naked eye, making it the final celestial body known to pre-telescopic civilization. It was literally the edge of the known cosmos. Modern psychology recognizes something called the boundary effect, the human tendency to project meaning onto limits and edges. Saturn, as the visible boundary of the ancient world, naturally became associated with limitation, restriction, and the unknown. This psychological principle may explain why cultures worldwide developed similar Saturn-related mythologies independently. Saturn's characteristics align eerily with its mythological associations. An orbital period of nearly 30 years to complete one cycle, a generation's worth of human experience, an average temperature of 285 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Celsius, making it one of the coldest places in our solar system. Surprisingly low density. Saturn would actually float if placed in a cosmic ocean, and a magnetic field perfectly aligned with its rotational axis, unlike any other planet. At Saturn's North Pole exists something that shouldn't be possible according to conventional meteorology: a massive, perfectly geometric hexagon. This storm system, larger than Earth itself, maintains its six-sided shape with supernatural precision. It's been observed for over 4 decades without significant change. This hexagon corresponds to sacred geometry found in religious and occult traditions worldwide. When flattened, it forms the hexagram, the Star of David, the Seal of Solomon, symbols used across cultures for binding and containment. When rendered three-dimensionally, the hexagon becomes a cube, the perfect geometric prison. In 2004, NASA's Cassini spacecraft began recording something unprecedented. Saturn emits structured radio waves that, when converted to audible frequencies, sound distinctly artificial. Unlike the chaotic noise typically associated with planetary magnetic fields, Saturn's emissions follow patterns that seem almost intentional. These recordings reveal rhythmic pulses occurring at regular intervals, frequency modulations that suggest encoded information, and harmonic structures reminiscent of human-made transmissions. Independent researchers have noted similarities between these Saturn frequencies and certain brainwave patterns associated with altered states of consciousness, particularly those reported during near-death experiences. Saturn's influence didn't disappear with the rise of monotheistic religions. It migrated into their very foundations, often hiding in plain sight. In Hebrew tradition, Saturday, Saturn's day, became the Sabbath, a day of cessation and limitation. The word Sabbath itself derives from the Hebrew Shabbat, meaning to cease or to rest. But this isn't joyful celebration, it's structured limitation, a divinely mandated pause in human activity. Orthodox Jewish men wear tefillin during morning prayers, small black leather boxes containing sacred texts bound to the forehead and arm. These boxes are perfect cubes, echoing Saturn's geometric signature. The practice involves binding oneself with leather straps while reciting ancient texts, a ritual that symbolically recreates the concept of spiritual containment. The Kaaba in Mecca stands as perhaps the most powerful symbol of Saturn's influence in modern religion. This perfect black cube serves as the focal point for over 1.5 billion Muslims during daily prayers. During Hajj, millions of pilgrims circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times, mimicking orbital motion around a central gravitational force. Recent archaeological surveys have revealed that the Kaaba's dimensions follow specific mathematical ratios found in Saturn's ring system. The structure's proportions echo the spacing between Saturn's major rings, suggesting either remarkable coincidence or inherited ancient knowledge about celestial mechanics. Throughout Christian history, religious authorities have worn black robes during the most solemn ceremonies. Judges, priests, and scholars don this satin black as a symbol of authority and judgment. Academic graduation ceremonies worldwide continue this tradition. Graduates wear black caps and gowns, literally donning Saturn's colors as they enter. Society's structured hierarchy. The Gnostic texts, suppressed by early Christianity but preserved in hidden manuscripts, offer perhaps the most direct explanation of Saturn's role in human consciousness. According to Gnostic cosmology, the material world isn't a divine creation, it's a carefully constructed trap. The physical universe was created not by the true God, but by a lesser entity called the demiurge, whose purpose is maintaining human souls within a false reality. The Nag Hammadi texts discovered in 1945 contain specific references to a cosmic prison maintained by archonic forces. The Apocryphon of John describes 7 planetary spheres that souls must traverse after death, each ruled by an archon ruler who seeks to prevent the soul's escape to true reality. Saturn, as the outermost sphere, serves as the final checkpoint, the ultimate test of whether a soul recognizes the illusion or becomes trapped within it for another cycle. In this Gnostic view, reincarnation isn't spiritual evolution, it's energetic recycling. The soul, believing it must return to learn lessons or pay karmic debts, voluntarily re-enters the cycle of birth and death. The trap's effectiveness lies in its apparent benevolence. Souls choose their own imprisonment. Modern near-death experience research has documented remarkably consistent reports of encounters with beings of light who encourage souls to return, to complete their earthly mission. Gnostic texts describe identical scenarios as deception, archonic entities masquerading as divine beings to manipulate souls back into incarnation. Some researchers have noted that NDEs often occur in hospital settings surrounded by electromagnetic fields from medical equipment. Could these artificial electromagnetic environments be inadvertently replicating the frequency patterns associated with Saturn's transmissions? Recent developments in space exploration have revealed information about Saturn that our ancestors couldn't have known through observation alone, yet somehow anticipated in their mythological systems. The Cassini mission revealed that Saturn's rings aren't static decorations, they're dynamic living systems. Material constantly spirals inward toward the planet, while new material is expelled outward. This creates a perpetual recycling system that mirrors the reincarnation cycle described in ancient texts. More disturbing, scientists have discovered that Saturn's rings generate their own electromagnetic fields, creating a complex web of energy patterns that extend far beyond the visible ring system. These fields fluctuate in ways that suggest responsiveness to external stimuli. David Ickey's research, while controversial, points to an intriguing correlation between lunar cycles and human consciousness patterns. If the moon does amplify and broadcast Saturn's influence, this could explain why psychiatric hospitals report increased activity during full moons, why ancient cultures tracked lunar calendars so meticulously, and why modern studies continue to find statistical correlations between lunar phases and human behavior. Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency, known as the Schumann resonance, typically maintains a steady 7.83 Hz. However, recent monitoring has detected unusual fluctuations that correlate with Saturn's orbital position relative to Earth. When Saturn reaches specific angular relationships with our planet, the Schumann resonance displays patterns similar to the frequencies recorded from Saturn itself. This suggests that Saturn's influence on Earth may be more direct and measurable than previously understood. The cube appears throughout human civilization with suspicious frequency. In religious architecture, from the Kaaba to Jewish synagogues, featuring cubic elements in corporate logos where countless companies use cubic geometry in their branding, in urban planning where modern cities are built on grid systems that mirror cubic constraints, and in technology where computer processors literally contain millions of cubic transistors. Modern technology has created an unprecedented form of cubic containment, the digital environment. Screens are rectangular, flattened cubes, pixels are arranged in cubic grids, and virtual reality creates artificial cubic spaces for consciousness to inhabit. Social media platforms use algorithms that create filter bubbles, invisible cubic containers that limit what information users encounter. These digital cubes may represent the evolution of Saturn's containment system into the technological realm. Research into binaural beats, slightly different frequencies played in each ear, demonstrates that external sound can directly influence brainwave patterns. If Saturn emits structured frequencies, these could theoretically influence human consciousness on a planetary scale. Studies have shown that specific frequencies can induce alpha waves, 813 Hz, associated with relaxed passive states, theta waves, 4 to 8 Hz, linked to deep meditation and memory formation, and delta waves, 0.54 Hz, connected to deep sleep and unconscious processes. Saturn's recorded frequencies, when analyzed through this lens, show remarkable correlations with the theta range, the brainwave state associated with suggestibility and memory encoding. Standard musical tuning is based on A440 Hz, established in 1939. However, many ancient musical traditions used A to 432 Hz, which mathematically relates to natural frequencies found throughout the universe. Some researchers argue that 440 Hz creates subtle psychological tension, while 432 Hz promotes relaxation and expanded awareness. Interestingly, Saturn's fundamental frequency, when calculated based on its orbital period, approximates mathematical harmonics of 432 Hz rather than 440 Hz. Understanding Saturn's influence doesn't require despair. It offers opportunity. If consciousness operates beyond the physical constraints of space and time, then awareness itself becomes the tool for transcending limitation. Various traditions develop techniques for avoiding the reincarnation trap. Egyptian practices found in the Book of the Dead contain specific instructions for navigating the afterlife without being deceived by false guides, including maintaining awareness during the death process, refusing to enter bright lights without first determining their source, and reciting specific formulas that grant passage beyond the archonic spheres. Tibetan techniques in the Bardo Thodol describe the intermediate state between death and rebirth, offering detailed maps of consciousness after bodily death. Advanced practitioners learn to recognize illusions and avoid being drawn back into incarnation. Early Christian Gnostics developed practices for achieving gnosis, direct knowledge of divine reality that transcends the demiurge's deception. These techniques focus on recognizing the illusory nature of material existence while maintaining compassion for those still trapped within it. Contemporary approaches to transcending Saturn's influence include meditation practices, with specific techniques for observing thought patterns without identifying with them, recognizing the difference between the observer and the observed. Frequency. Work using sound healing, crystal bowls, and other vibrational tools to attune consciousness to frequencies that promote expanded awareness rather than limitation. And sacred geometry. Working with geometric patterns that represent expansion rather than containment. Spirals, fractals, and organic forms that mirror natural growth patterns. Here lies the greatest paradox in Saturn's cosmic function. By creating the ultimate limitation, it may inadvertently point toward ultimate freedom. The cube's very perfection makes its boundaries visible to those who develop the eyes to see them. Saturn's role as cosmic teacher becomes clear when viewed from this perspective. The harsh lessons, the apparent limitations, the endless cycles, all serve to eventually exhaust the soul's attachment to illusion. When suffering becomes great enough, consciousness begins seeking what lies beyond suffering. Rather than fighting Saturn's influence or attempting to escape it, some traditions suggest integration. Saturn's energy, when consciously directed, can provide the structure and discipline necessary for genuine spiritual development. The key lies in recognizing the difference between unconscious imprisonment and conscious utilization of Saturnian energy for growth rather than stagnation. We may be living through a unique historical moment where Saturn's influence is becoming increasingly visible. Global events seem to follow Saturnian patterns of structure, limitation, and control, yet simultaneously, more humans than ever before are questioning the systems that govern their lives. This suggests we may be approaching what some traditions call the choice point, a moment when collective human consciousness must decide whether to remain within familiar limitations or risk expanding beyond them. Signs of the awakening include increased interest in ancient wisdom traditions, growing skepticism toward institutional authority, rising awareness of hidden patterns in media and politics, technological developments that both enhance and threaten human freedom, and environmental changes that force reconsideration of humanity's relationship with nature. The Saturn hypothesis isn't meant to create fear or despair. It's meant to spark recognition. If we've been living within a cosmic cube, then seeing its walls is the first step toward transcending them. Saturn, in this view, serves as both jailer and liberator. The very completeness of its containment system eventually leads to its own transcendence. When the prison becomes visible, it ceases to be a prison. Perhaps the ultimate truth about Saturn is that it represents the finite game, playing within fixed rules for the purpose of ending the game by winning. But consciousness itself may be engaged in an infinite game, playing for the purpose of continuing play, where the only goal is to keep expanding possibilities. Saturn's cubic geometry represents finite limitation, but awareness itself has no shape, no boundaries, no beginning or end. It cannot be contained because it is the very space within which all containers appear. The escape from Saturn's influence doesn't require going anywhere or becoming anything different. It requires recognizing what you already are beyond all the definitions, roles, and identities that make up the cubic container of personality. When you see the cube, you are already outside it. When you recognize the trap, you have already transcended it. When you understand the game, you are free to play differently. The choice, as always, remains with you. What is Saturn to you? A planet, a symbol, a teacher, or something else entirely? Share your insights and continue the conversation, because the greatest prison is the one we never discuss, and the greatest freedom comes from questions we never stop asking.